Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts Jada and Brian,
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
International aid organizations are assessing needs and delivery routes in Myanmar after a deadly 7.7 magnitude earthquake on March 28th damaged two major airports and left many roads impassable in a country mired in a 4-year-old civil war that has made transport in many areas extremely dangerous.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday announced the most sweeping tariffs of his administration so far, including levies that exceed 30% on Asian economies such as China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Thailand.
Bangladesh is ramping up a push toward renewable energy as it braces for summer electricity shortages and as Dhaka is locked in a battle with India's Adani Group over a controversial power supply deal.
Vietnamese tech giant FPT has opened a new R&D center in Da Nang, partnering with local authorities to conduct research, as well as develop technology and human resources in the semiconductor and AI sectors.
English translations of Japanese novels are becoming bestsellers in Britain, with Japanese fiction accounting for 40% of top-selling translated literature in the UK.
U.S. contract chipmaker GlobalFoundries and UMC, Taiwan's number 2 chipmaker, are exploring the possibility of a merger amid American efforts to mitigate risks surrounding the Taiwan Strait and fend off growing competition from China in mature chips, Nikkei Asia has learned. Now moving on to the next segment.
China, one of the most expensive places to raise a child, eyes free preschool. The Chinese government is planning a step-by-step approach to making early childhood education free, aiming to reduce the burden of high child-rearing costs on households, spark consumer spending, and boost the declining birth rate. In China, elementary school begins at age 6. From ages 3 to 6, children attend preschool or kindergarten, and the enrollment rate for that group is over 90%. Kindergarten costs, which vary depending on region and whether a school is public or private, range from roughly $1,400 to $6,900 per year. This amounts to 6% to 30% of household income based on the per capita disposable income of urban residents. China's now shelved one-child policy resulted in a sharp decline in the number of minors in the country. More recently, an economic slump has discouraged couples from having children. The number of births in 2024 was half the most recent peak in 2016, when the one-child policy began to be withdrawn. The cost of raising a child to adulthood in China is 6.3 times the gross domestic product per capita, according to estimates by think tank Yuhua Population Research. China ranked number 2 in costs among 14 big economies worldwide, second only to South Korea with its rate of 7.8 times GDP per capita.
Thailand considers cut to tourist visa waiver as cons outweigh pros. Thailand is considering reversing its decision to extend visa-free stays for tourists to up to 60 days in response to a lower-than-hoped boost to traffic, as well as concerns over individuals who abuse the system. Thailand's tourism industry accounts for almost 20% of its gross domestic product. To further boost tourist numbers, it expanded visa-free entry for tourists from 57 to 93 countries in July. The maximum stay for passport holders from many countries, including Japan, was also extended from 30 days to 60 days. But the effect of the changes has been smaller than hoped. While the number of foreign tourists who visited Thailand in 2024 was about 36 million, reaching around 90% of pre-pandemic figures. Some believe it will take several more years to hit the 40 million mark, due to the economic downturn in China and other factors. The average length of stay by tourists was also around 20 days, indicating that relatively few are taking advantage of the extended 60-day cap.
And now for news highlights. In each episode, Jada and I have a discussion about a recent article that has particularly captured our attention.
And today we're going to talk about Asia's pet boom. Brian, do you have any pets?
I don't right now, but after reading this article, maybe I should, because it seems to be the growing trend.
Yes, across Asia.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things this story touches on, is that it's not just one specific country. It's an Asian-wide phenomenon.
Yes, there's a graph in the article, and it shows a lot of Asian countries actually, and how its pet care market is surging, as well as how many pets, like the percentage of cats and dogs that each country has. And I was surprised that India is pretty up there. I mean, it's kind of the biggest market right now in Asia. But there's also Southeast Asian countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, and obviously Japan's in there too. But so the pet market is very closely related to demography, each country's demography.
Yeah, earlier in this episode, I read out a story about how China is working to make kindergarten and preschool free or less expensive because there is a declining birth rate. And that is linked to having pets, because pets, even though people are spending more on their pets, it is generally considered cheaper and a little easier to have a pet than it is to raise another human being.
Yeah, till they're 18, 20.
Yeah. And yeah, you're talking about the India, it's the growth.
Yeah, it's huge.
Because one of the graphs we have here talks about the pet care market. That's not just food, but also shelter and veterinary bills and whatnot. India is like a significant surge, and most of it is dogs.
Yeah, most of it's dog. I think in the article it quotes the Euromonitor forecast, and it says it predicts a nearly 60% jump in the India pet care market over the course of 2024 to 2029. So yeah, a 60% jump.
Meanwhile, the other graph that we have is pet populations. And naturally, because China is a very large country, it's on the top of the list.
Yeah.
But it's also an even split between cats and dogs.
Oh.
Just about a 50-50 split, which is interesting because the Philippines and India and Thailand, it's mostly dogs.
Oh, I see. And a couple of years back in Japan, it was a headline that cats took over dogs for many of the household pets.
Yeah,
so now cats are predominantly the main household pets. Yeah.
Yeah, in that graph, it looks like about 2/3 of the pet population is cats versus dogs.
And this trend, it's mostly been accelerated after COVID, right? Or during COVID and after COVID, yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing. People were not socializing as much, and sometimes virtual phone calls just don't cut it.
Yeah.
And so having a companion, even if it's an animal companion, is something that a lot of people got into, especially during COVID. And that COVID was only 5 years ago, and pets live a little longer than that.
Yeah.
And people didn't stop getting pets either, so it is a growing trend still. And one of the other interesting things is like food.
Pet food, yeah.
Yeah, people are getting pickier about the food they feed their pets.
Not any more scraps of food
Yeah,
from
there's
the
a
table.
stat in here about the decline of people. They interviewed people asking if they feed their dogs table scraps, and there's a noticeable decline because they want to treat their dogs to nicer food. And
there's also stats for that. Isn't that, I think Hong Kong is...
Yeah, in Hong Kong, like one of them, they talk about the top 10 pet food spenders. And, Singapore and Taiwan and South Korea, Japan, they're all up there. But by far, doubling any other country or region is Hong Kong. And it just made me think, boy, if I was reborn as a pet dog, I want to be a pet dog in Hong Kong.
You'd get the best food available. The story also goes into like technology for pets, and I think healings, pet bills and all that. One thing was that some vets rely on tech medicine, like laser therapy. So yeah, dogs and cats are getting the best care.
Yeah, I was wondering what laser therapy meant, because that's and also you work on that. It's not to really go back to food, but I forgot there's thing in Korea where they put the pets go on tours of like gourmet tours
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah,
are
yeah.
tailored to the dogs. And there's one company that a play on word. It's called Dogshilin.
From the
which-
Michelin.
from Michelin, like the Michelin guides, and it's growing significantly in popularity, and business is booming. And so it's not just that people are spending on pets instead of having kids because kids are more expensive. It's also just people want to treat their pets, and pets are satisfying people in their lives.
The article uses the word humanization.
There it is.
Yeah. And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.